Okay, another important concept is asset and liability. Let me change the font color here. Assets, and then let's also put liabilities. Assets are things that you own. Liabilities are things that you owe other people. So for example, and this is what would be called the balance sheet. It's just a fancy name for showing your assets and showing your liabilities. So if you list all the things that you owe other people, maybe the house mortgage. Okay, let's say you owe the bank $300,000 for the mortgage. Maybe you owe car mortgage because you also borrow some money from the bank, and maybe you owe $10,000. Maybe you have student loans, and maybe that's $20,000. So listing all of that and totaling all the liabilities you have, that's called your total liability. Okay, things that you own. So maybe you own a house, and maybe your house is worth, let's say, $700,000. Maybe you own a car, and maybe that is worth $30,000 now. Okay, but you owe, notice here that you owe a car mortgage too. But if you sold a car today, you can sell it for $30,000. Maybe you have some stocks. If you're starting out, you probably don't have that much stock, and that's okay. You got some cash in the bank. Let's say you got $100,000 in the bank. That's good, right? Okay, so all of that, things that you own, tangible assets, things that you can touch, those are called assets. Okay, all right, and the total asset, you total all of this up, that becomes your total asset. Here's a very important term called the net worth. Net worth is basically your total assets subtracted by total liabilities. Now here's an interesting thing. When you look at people, you can easily see the things that they own. They have a nice watch, they drive a nice car, they live in a nice house, right? So all those things are visible. Those are assets, so you can look at them. But what you cannot see are their liabilities. How much of that house is owned by the bank? How much of that car is actually owned by the bank? Or is it free? Did they pay it off? How much of them, their monthly payment is going to pay off their mortgage or the student loans? You don't see, right? That's why just by looking at people on the outside, you cannot actually tell if they're wealthy or not, right? Because our assets are appearances, right? Some of these assets you can't even see, like stocks, but most of the assets you can see, like real estate, cars, right? Cash. Sometimes depending on how much money you spend, they can kind of guess. So the assets are visible, liabilities you can't. So again, but the true net worth, the true financial wealth of that person is not shown in the assets, it's shown on the net worth of the individual, which is the total assets minus the total liability. So, as a rule of thumb, it's not a good idea to judge the person just based on the appearances, right? Financially speaking, you can't judge whether that person is wealthy just by looking at what things they own. And the goal for you is to, of course, increase your assets and decrease the liability, which in turn will increase your net worth. That's the secret, one of the secrets on how you can gain financial wealth.